Welcome everybody to Flashes of Insight. My name is Joe Grayland, and it's my pleasure to have a conversation this morning and this evening with our two guests from Europe, Dr. James Alison and Professor Thomas O'Loughlin, and later we'll be joined by Father Michael Kelly from Australia. The focus of our conversation today is the blessing of same-gender couples, which has come out of the Responsum from the Vatican. So, James, in your piece in the London Tablet, you describe the Responsum along the lines of a tantrum. Would you care to tell us a little bit more about how you came to this characterization?
Yes, I considered it as, if you like, how do you analyze an act of communication? An act of communication presupposes that there is something dialogical going on, that people are in dialogue. And when someone decides to interrupt the dialogue and claiming it shouldn't be happening, they try to play a trump card, as it were, saying, now you all shut up because I'm right. And it's actually to mischaracterize the nature of the conversation. That's what it does, because it's attempting to make a vertical claim in what is essentially a horizontal discussion.
And it has the characterization of children talking, as if in the playground, you know, one is trying to have power over the other.
Yes, I mean, yeah, it's essentially saying, you can't have this discussion because I'm right, because I'm right, because I'm right. I'm sorry, that's it. Well, that's a form of an attempt to introduce a vertical absolutism into a horizontal discussion. It doesn't work, which is why I thought that the president of the German Bishops' Conference remark saying, yes, we will take their view into account in our dialogue, was actually a wonderful put down. because by its definition, it was attempting to be a trump card saying there can't be a dialogue on this.
And why can't there be a dialogue? Why do you think the Vatican or whoever's writing this has that in mind? What's the other agenda that's at play here?
To be honest, I think that the whole of the question of what authority is when it comes to natural law is what's at stake there. Any realistic understanding of natural law, and I'm assuming that there is a good understanding of natural law, presupposes that what it delivers is delivered to us horizontally as something that is reasonable for humans to understand, because we understand that it's not an extrinsic divine law, but the reality of what is revealing itself to our reason. That's the point of the understanding of natural law.
Thank you.
They've got themselves into a position of wanting to hold on to a particular definition of natural law that is no longer available to everyone's reason, but them telling us what our reason should be, which is a completely to discharacterize what natural law is all about.
Yeah, thank you. Just to welcome in Father Michael Kelly from Sydney. How are you? And
all right, and my apologies, but when you haven't got a leg, you get to think slowly.
Right. Tom, I'd like to come to you now, and because the matter of natural law and the whole area of sin and development and evil is an attitude that comes into liturgy. So do you have any points that you'd like to bring in now that James has opened up the question?
Well, I think it's worth exploring this whole question of what we mean by natural law. There is a long tradition going back to the 16th century of looking on natural law as if it were a perfectly deductive system. You know all the first principles, and then you can deduce detailed judgments out of it, and then treating it as if it's the same as the way physicists use a law. There's the law of gravity and there's natural law. They're just there. But of course, natural law is not something that is deduced from first principles that can then give you, from a perfectly known premise, you get a certain conclusion. Natural law is an ordinance of reason. It's using our reason to try and make sense of the reality around us. And in making sense of the reality around us, we realize that our understanding is always fractured. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to discover the best way within the nature of reality as we understand it, because we also believe that God is love. And so natural law is a far more tentative thing, and it's a far more, it's an invitation for human beings to discover the richness of their reality, rather than a sort of playing with mathematical rules as if you could just, as if you could sort of work it out on a blackboard, you know, quod erat demonstrandum, that which has been demonstrated.
Yeah.
So if the paradigm of natural law is the Euclidean universe, then unfortunately the people in the Vatican who are using it are in a different epistemological world to the one in which ordinary human beings live, where we live by discovery. And of course, if you're in an epistemological world where you know you don't know everything, you know that our understanding sometimes grows, sometimes retreats, but it's always something that we have to, you know, it's hard-won knowledge. Then simple answers become rather silly.
Thank you. Mick, I'd like to come to you now. Tom has said, you know, there's a different epistemological world. Do you think people in the Catholic Church generally actually care about natural law or understand it, or even, you know, intuitively live out of it?
No, and I don't think you know, look, I think it's the last resort of the scoundrel to invoke the natural law. Natural law is nothing more, in my understanding, is nothing more than systematic reflection on experience, and on the basis of some presuppositions, which are general and not prescriptive, and that's what natural law is. Now, I don't think anybody has anybody except, you know, fanatics have any grasp at all of natural law.
James, if I can come back to you, do you think that there is a big movement happening in the Catholic Church for gay people, for gay Catholics generally? Do you think the Church is moving forward, or was this a step to the right?
Oh, actually, I've been rather encouraged, because I think that it was a shot in the foot. What surprised me is how much more unworriedly critical a vast number of people, including bishops and cardinals who are usually party line people, were saying, really, this won't do. So I was very encouraged. I was very encouraged by just how, I mean, it's curiously one of the, to return to what Mike was saying, it seems that the ordinary Catholic people, a lot of them have a far better understanding of what natural law really is than what these Charlies do, because they understand perfectly well that we've been working out for ourselves that gay and lesbian people just are something. And if they are something, then their flourishing is going to flow from that, not despite that. If you like, that seems to be a pretty basic understanding that an awful lot of people have come to. So when they hear these arcane, deductive, It's a kind of deductive trump card, saying no because we say no, because we say no. They're saying, oh, for God's sake, get over it. None of us think that anymore. So I think actually, curiously, there's been rather more positive than negative coming from this.
Yeah. Tom, do you have any thoughts about that part of the conversation?
Well, I must say I was, the old trick of the canonist to get someone to set up a perfect question, which then admits of a perfect yes/no answer. That's a game that the Catholic Church played until the 1960s, and to hear a group that considered themselves not only serious theologians, but the model theologians for Catholic theology, playing this game of you get a perfect question, which then admits this perfect answer. I think it not just brought their own judgment into play, it brought their whole status as members of the church, where there are other theologians into disrepute. These are not people, James said that it's not dialogical. They don't even know where the dialogue is actually taking place, that they're playing this game of you invent this question, and then you get one word answer plus a little token explanation. It's a game. They've missed where they thought they were playing a very smart game that would outfox us all. Actually, we're just embarrassed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mick, what do you think?
Well, I was just going to say that, I learned very, very early in my time in the Jesuits, which, is now 50 years, but I learned very early what the move of, and I'm sure James would be aware of this with watching Dominican scholastics, scholastic philosophers doing it. What happens is the old trick that and Lonergan is perhaps, and not so much Lonergan himself as Lonergan devotees are the worst example of this. What they do is when they face a question, they work around to redefine the question to fit the answer they've already got, and they will shuffle, get your confirmation that yes, that's actually what you're trying to discuss or come to terms with or define, and then they'll give you their answer, and they've had the answer all along anyway, and they've just been waiting to drop it on you.
Why are they dropping it on us now then?
Because they're always right.
Yeah, but what's happening?
Can't bear the thought that they got something wrong.
What's happening internally in the Vatican, though? What's happening within the pontificate of Francis?
I wouldn't look to that. I mean, the same old creeps are there in the CDF that have always been there. Ladaria is I think a bit of a patsy. He's a nice bloke. He's not, he's not a world beater, but he's, he's there. He's a classic Spanish Jesuit systematic theologian, spent most of his life at the Gregorian, knows the Roman system, all that sort of stuff. Look, other people might have a much more positive view of him. I just look at him and say, well, really, what's he contributed? He's infinitely better than Ratzinger or, Mueller or any of those blokes, but he's still an old Romano. That's where he comes from.
Right. James, the Pope is reputed to have given you the keys. Was it the keys to the kingdom, or was it the keys of priesthood?
The phrase was the power of the keys. The
power of the keys. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what that all meant for you and for him?
Well, when he called, of course, he said this phrase: "Te doy el poder de las llaves." ¿Me entiendes? Te doy el poder. I give you the power of the keys. Do you understand? I give you the power of the keys. So he repeated it twice, aware that I probably wouldn't understand. And so, of course, I, being obviously amazed out of my mind to be having this conversation, said, yes, 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 I did understand, which of course I didn't. But one thing which I did understand was that he was treating me as a priest and giving me jurisdiction. And I've since asked people about that. They said, yes, actually, traditionally, there are two sorts of jurisdiction that were understood in the Power of the Keys canonically. One was for confession, and the other was for preaching. Those were understood to be the two things. So essentially, those are the two things which theoretically you need jurisdiction from a bishop. So effectively, he was saying you have universal jurisdiction for those things, which all cardinals have, incidentally, and which he gave to the mercy priests. He set up a number of mercy priests in the Jubilee year of the Mercy, 2016, I think. And apparently that's what he gave them as well.
The power of
so,
the Keys.
The power of these, as so I understand, as the basic minimum is, I have faculties, as it were, but faculties without an ordinary, which is weird. So I actually asked a very distinguished canonist whom I met in Rome, a delightful man who really knows his stuff. I said, listen, what does this mean? What sense does this make canonically? He said, it doesn't make any sense canonically at all. But he said, but he does these things.
Thank you.
So it was a relaxed canonist.
Relaxed canonist and a relaxed pope by the sound of it.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. This has been Flashes of Insight.